place to promote the growth of Tigres in English through analysis, discussions, interviews, and more. Welcome to the La U Times Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the La U Times Podcast. I'm your host, Arnoldo Lozano, and we welcome you to another episode. First of all, we're introducing our friend Tigres English in Austin, Texas. Lou, how we doing, my friend?
What's up, fellas? Good to be here, man. It's been a busy week, and it's been a great week, coming off of a great weekend, so awesome to be here. I'm pumped, and I love this intro music that Dennis hooked us up with.
Yeah, let's go over to our producer, Dennis Gartman Jr. Great setup you guys going. I'm sure we're going to get it down, or at least I'll get it down, with coming in and with all that great music that he produced himself for this podcast. Dennis, how are you, my friend?
I am good. I'm a little tired still from the weekend, but like a good tired, obviously. And very excited to talk about Saturday and look ahead to this week because the fun never stops with us.
Couldn't agree anymore. And your fellow partner in North Texas, Edgar, Double O Nation. How are we, my friend?
Doing great. Happy to be back with you guys once again to talk about Tigres and the great weekend that we had.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting this outline together. I was checking it out earlier and very extensive, very promising for what it's going to be a great episode with lots to talk about, lots of positives. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. I have something bad to end it with. It's from the vault moment that I came across earlier today, but it has to be talked about because it's a from the vault moment. But other than that, we have a great stuff to talk about today. We have a lot of positive things that happened over the last week. Tigres week came to a conclusion in Houston with 3 matches by our club on the femenil side. We played the Dash and then in the Summer Cup, and then we also played Puebla and Miami in the Leagues Cups on the men's side. So, fellas, we were all at the game this past Saturday, and that's what we're going to start off with first. Tigres versus Inter Miami. A great experience. We all had a different experience, but great experience overall with a victory that puts us in first place of the group and now has us set up to play another game in Texas, which we'll get later on in the episode. But ultimately, we're riding the good moment. So let's talk about your experience at the NRG Stadium, what you thought about Tigres playing at an NFL stadium, in this case where the Houston Texans plays, who Tigres now has a partnership and an alliance that they've created. They were at their training camp last Monday. And so talk to me about your experience there, the food, environment, the fan interactions you guys had or saw, and, just walk everybody who maybe wasn't there to show a little bit of what they could have, experienced. I know some people weren't able to travel, but ultimately, we have us to share the fan experience in the U.S. So we'll start off with none other than the famous Lou Popovich. And that's, if you guys aren't familiar with, Mr. Popovich, he's the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. That's a tactical genius. So that's who Lou is for us here on the pod.
Man, it was a great experience. It felt like a home game at times. I was really impressed with both crowds, to be honest with you. The Miami fans were classy. They were there obviously to enjoy, their team, but I felt like everybody was having a good time. Everybody was enjoying the moment. The food was fantastic. I had the nachos over in section 300. I was in 356, and I got to walk around the entire section, and the food was great. Drinks were great. Everybody seemed to be enjoying it. Both fan bases were kind of getting along very well. I think the only negative thing was that it was, really high heat, really high humidity. So walking up to the stadium was a chore. But other than that, the product on the pitch was excellent. I thought both teams played pretty well. I think both teams have another gear to give, but as far as the product on the pitch, I thought it was great. Good matchups. We got to see 3 goals, which, what can you ask from, more from that side of things. So great atmosphere. Our fans were loud. You could hear several of the chants really loud, kind of echoing, booming through the stadium. So my section, everybody seemed to know the chants, so we were right there chanting for the team. When I left, my voice was almost shot. So it was a great experience overall. I definitely would do it again.
Absolutely, my friend. 356. I was in 350. We weren't too far away from each other. I got to see you at the end of the game on the way out. If you have kept up with our podcast, you've known that we've all made several comments that for a while we didn't believe Lou existed because he was only an online social media presence. We never got to saw him, even though we were at the same game. So it was really good to see you, my friend. I know we talked a little bit about the game after, and I showed you through my passion and my in my voice the confidence that I now have in our head coach, and we were able to spend some time with a couple other people that we ran into, take some pictures. So really good to see you. Dennis, how was your experience, my friend? You were able to bring some friends from the DFW area, as you would like to call them, your gringo friends. They came to our tailgate. That Mr. Alfred, who's not here with us tonight, the new Tigres takes account is Alfred. So make sure you give him a follow. He set up a tent for us, had some chairs. Obviously, we brought some coolers with some water, some beers, and some sodas for people to enjoy that made it out to our tailgate. Thank you, and shout out to him for hosting that for us. But you were able to bring some of your friends to the tailgate. So what was your experience coming to the NRG Stadium?
Yeah, the boys and I had a great time. For 3 of them, they came with me to the game last October, the Clásico Regio, the friendly in Houston. And so they've already kind of experienced a little bit of what a Tigres game is like. And then one of our other friends joined us for the first time. So it was cool that they got to experience a competitive match. I told them as we were driving down, like the 2 main goals for the day, or I guess the 3 main goals were to watch Tigres win, watch Guignac play, and eat good food after the game. And all 3 of those goals were achieved. Shout out Tacos Coquis out in east side of Houston, because we had some great trompo tacos after the game. But we enjoyed getting there. We enjoyed the tailgate. I will say, just kind of thinking about, walking up to the stadium, because we came from the train station stop. I was not a fan of how kind of confusing it was to like get around to the side where everything was happening. I wish that would have been made more clear, especially in regards to the fan zone by the team, of like where exactly it was going to be, because nobody really knew like where it was. I'm sure people who live in Houston, like you, I don't know though, and Alfred, people who know the stadium, like probably had a good idea. But like for people like us who, are coming to NRG for the first time in ages, or for the first time ever, it was a little crazy trying to figure out, okay, where exactly do we need to go? Where's, all the things happening at? So that's kind of my one like complaint, I guess. But
Especially because, for context, NRG Stadium is in a park where it's not really a park, but it's just it's a huge lot where you have NRG Arena,
yep,
NRG Center, and an NRG Stadium, as well as the Astrodome Stadium next to it. So it's a huge lot. And so there's definitely many entrances that you could come through. But, the main entrance per se is the blue lot where, most people, were able to park their cars. And, the south side of the stadium is where you have the big NRG sign, and, the fan zone was there. So I just wanted to give some context there about the stadium layout.
yeah, and that all made sense once we got there. Like it became a little bit more clear as to why they put it there. We had a great view. We were in 343, like kind of in the corner, I guess, on the opposite side of Lou. And I had a great time. The AC and the roof on the stadium was really nice, because we weren't like dying like how you and I were on Wednesday of last week. I don't know though. I I'm not a big stadium food guy, just because I think all of that or most of that is a ripoff, like price wise, you know. So I only got a big thing of French fries for like $8. But honestly, for French fries, for stadium French fries, I was very happy with that, and saved my money for the tacos after the game, which were much better. But the vibes were really great in the stadium. A lot of friendly interactions like everywhere we went. Um, Edgar and I know Edgar, I guess, had some technical difficulties pop up just now, but we had a fun time walking around on the concourse and yelling at fans of other Liga MX teams who had their jerseys on, yelling "Perdidos!" Because like, why are you there? Especially the couple of Rayados people who were there, like, what are y'all doing? Um, and the stadium was loud. Like, I watched the whole game back today on Apple TV just to like kind of get a better idea of the game and stuff, and was reminded about how loud the atmosphere was even through the TV screen, because it was awesome. Our fans showed up in great ways, and especially the Hincha de Tigres, ¿Cuál es tu profesión chant? Like, that was super, super loud, and Libres did a great job of, making their presence felt and all that. So overall, it was a great night. And like I said, my boys and I had an awesome time. And we talked about that a lot in the car about how cool the atmosphere was. And I told them, now the next phase for y'all is to come with me to Monterrey so you can get the real experience. So hopefully we can make that happen next year.
Absolutely. Edgar, joining us back. How was your experience, my friend? I know that you drove into town the same day of the game and you drove back after the game. You were able to experience the fan zone, and you were able to get your hands on a prized possession that most of us, or not all of us, were able to get.
That's right. So the club in the entire week really was posting these really amazing, super cool stickers that apparently no one has but me. And I only got one of them. There was about 6 or 7 different designs, really beautiful designs. Only one of them was available. Struggled to find it a lot. Asked someone for it. Pointed me in the wrong direction, and then casually, Tigres employee walks past me and hands me a sticker. So very fortunate to have it, but a little bit frustrated that the rest of them were not available, and there was no communication about that. That's really my only complaint about the fan zone. But other than that, it was a really great experience, great environment. It really felt like you were at the Volcan when you were inside the stadium at the NRG.
Yeah, that's kind of the trend that we've seen on social media over the last couple of days. I was speaking to Glenn Davis, who covers soccer matters here on ESPN Houston, and he mentioned that he also ran into a lot of people that share that with him, and he loved the atmosphere that was at NRG Stadium. I know that a lot of people say that it was obviously similar to El Volcan. Wish we could have gotten even more people in there, but we didn't. But we did have an official attendance of 46,080 people. That's a lot more, a few more thousand people that are able to get into El Estadio Universitario. So really cool, stat on that. And then also Edgar shares that when he put together this outline is that it's the second largest attendance record in Leagues Cup history. So it's good to, add that to our accolades, I guess, on a fan perspective. But ultimately, like all you guys have mentioned, the atmosphere in there was incredible. From, the first 5 seconds in, they started the Tigres chant, which the, Libres de Loco started. So they set the tone early. They never stopped, just like they usually do. And, being in an NFL stadium and, just seeing a tremendous stadium of that size and magnitude was incredible to experience, and just be proud of where our team is at, right? Like where, we're able to offer with, Alfred Tigres is also mentioning that 30K or at least Tigres for sure. So it was a really proud moment for me to see that. And, from the moment of hanging out with a lot of people in the English community, outside the stadium at our tailgates, I was able to interview a few people, and they were able to share, a little bit about the team and where they're coming from, and just, general, feels and vibes of going into the stadium to watch Tigres versus Miami. So ultimately a great show out by our fan base, and we're proud. We're moving on, obviously, and we're going to get into that analysis here with the lineups, Lou. The lineup that Paunovic presented on Saturday. I mentioned this in an earlier tweet, and I just thought that like he had changed every single lineup since he got here. But you might as well say that because the first game that we had against America in the Recopa Little Molero game, he used the same lineup from that to Jornada Uno. But from Jornada Uno to now Inter Miami, he's had a variation of lineup and a little bit of tactical difference in terms of what he was planning to do with the team, the different roles that each player was taking on. So talk to me about the lineup. Obviously, we had a little bit of the same in the back line with Angulo Aquino on the outside, and then the center back who's been the pairing. Nando Gorriaran in the middle with Rafael Carioca coming back after taking a rest in the Puebla game. And then you move on to the attacking part, that was to me the interesting part and where he has been, sort of rotating. And I'll let you carry on from there as far as the rotations with the players.
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me before the game if he was going to go Gignac or Nico, I would have said Gignac 100%. So I was really surprised that he went with Nico. And then you got Luis Quiñones and Marcelo Flores playing as wingers, and the team looked great, to be honest with you. I think it's great to see a coach willing to mix it up, willing to change formations, rotate the players, manage minutes without creating too much drama and without messing up the product on the pitch, which is what we care about, right? We care to see a consistent team, and to be honest with you, Tigres definitely has another gear to give, and statistically, we weren't great. I think our XG was at 1.15. We had 11 shots or 9 shots total and 4 on goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so nothing spectacular, but if you look at the way we attacked, we were very pragmatic, and we swarmed the final third, which is what I want to see. So without running the team into the ground, without exerting ourselves, putting in too much effort, we were able to dominate this game and do what we wanted, set the pace, set the tone, and without really killing ourselves on the pitch, which is fantastic. I think you can be impressed by what you saw out there for the full 90 minutes. Like on the first goal, which is Juan Bruneta's really awesome goal, we had 4 players in the box. So to me, that's really encouraging to see, because even if he doesn't score that, you have a really good chance of scoring on the rebound. And then on the second goal, we had 5 players in the box. And so we're really sending a lot of numbers into the final third and overwhelming the back line of opponents. And so contrast that to what Miami did, which was, the first one was a penalty, and likely if Pizarro doesn't foul there, what's his name would have scored anyway. Campana would have scored anyway.
Yep.
But if you look at the play, there's not a lot of players in the box, so they weren't overwhelming us with the attack. We flipped the field on them, and that's what Pauno wants to see, right? He wants to see us swarming that final third, getting a lot of numbers there, and then finishing plays. And that's what you saw during the game. And so that really gives you, even though the stats might not show that you're producing a lot or creating a lot of volume, you're giving yourself a really good chance of scoring on the few occasions that you do take shots on goal.
Yeah, they basically beat us on every statistical category. They beat us in possession. They had more corner kicks than we did. They had more passes. But ultimately, I agree with you. I think that the way that we attacked, it was a lot quicker. The way we were able to move the ball, transitioning out of the back and into the wings with Marcelo Flores, who I thought had a great game. Should have finished that a goal, or at least had that assist to set up I believe it was either Luis Quiñones and Bruneta who were both coming on after he had a spectacular play to get inside the box in that second half. So he had a good game where he was able to take on. He had some flashy plays. So I think the transition game for me and the intensity in which the team approached that transition from defense to offense what's what stood out to me. And I am really excited, again, going back to the lineup selection, that Paunovic, like you mentioned, is not scared to make this transition and be a little bit more strategic in selecting these players. When he encounters an opponent that he has to move it around, obviously you get the arrested player who Carioca was rested. He gave Cordova the start against Puebla, and he created chaos, and it was very disruptive against that opponent. But then you start Brunetta, who had an excellent game with an excellent goal, and just pure class. And you tweeted about it. 7 miles covered by Brunetta in that game. It's incredible because we've seen and we've talked about that. He was trying to push Brunetta into that work rate, right? Like, have him a lot more fluidity to his game by, providing more on the field with his involvement with high pressures, as well as carrying and dribbling the ball. So great stuff from Paunovic, as far as like planting the game and looking at the opponent, and also the players taking that, assignment and carrying it on the field. So let's go with Dennis. What did you think about the lineup as well? And then if there's anything that you could have changed as far as what Paunovic was able to select?
Yeah, obviously, I'm disappointed that Gignac didn't start, but I understand the reasoning why. Considering we had already had our place in the knockout there, and you didn't want to risk injury or anything with him, having him play the whole 90 or close to it. So I understand why, and hopefully he does start from the get-go on Thursday, but we'll get to that later. I know we sound like a broken record every single week, but literally the one player that was kind of a bum the whole game was Quiñones. I hate being that guy, but multiple times throughout that game, we had some really great chances that he messed up. Bad header. Too late to make a pass.
He missed a sitter, man.
He missed a sitter. Yeah, in the,
sitter.
like
He
late
was right in
first
front
half.
of us, and I was like, wow.
Second half. Just man, I just don't understand how you can mess up so many like good opportunities time and time again and still get the chances that you get on the field. So other than that, like I have no complaints about what he put out. Ibanez did fine, I mean, not like amazing, but he did fine, considering the circumstances. Um, I'll tell you this about the game. It was very entertaining to watch. I couldn't keep my eyes off of that game. That was the most like fun and most like entertaining I've game of words are hard. The most entertaining game that I've seen live probably ever of all the games that I've ever watched in a stadium. So back and forth, quality all over the field. And think about the guys who weren't there. Like Gignac didn't start the game. Cordova didn't start the game. Messi was not there. Busquets came in super late. Suarez didn't make the trip either. And Jordi Alba only played like 70 minutes. And yet, the quality and the technical ability on both sides was really strong. And it made for some really exciting plays. I feel like the stats are a little misleading because, like, if you go back and watch that game, it's pretty entertaining, all things considered. So, thought the midfield was really great. We've been talking about it all season, but Gordian has had a resurgent year, and I thought he was unreal. I mean, both him and Carioca just like blew away that midfield of Miami, especially first half. Now, second half, Miami's midfield kind of got it together a little bit. Bright, that kid, he's like played college last year. I don't know his first name, but he was excellent. And then Redondo and Gressel finally started to get it together second half too. So it got a little bit more even, but Nando and Carioca were just class above everybody else. And Reyes was great again. Like two very great games for him so far in this League's Cup. And Aquino came right back into the lineup as well and did great. You've already talked about Marcelo. The subs were great. Ociel, very limited, but like made an impact. Obviously, Vigon, I thought Cordova, was trying to cause havoc as well. And then Nahuel had a quietly really important games, big saves. That first
That
half save on
Campana save around
yeah,
75th minute was
that one, but also the one in the first half, the one that he saved with like his legs essentially, that was really big because that was kind of like a direct play that kind of came up out of nowhere and came super quick. Really, really important game from him, and it's good to see him in good form despite all the time that he's missed because of injury and suspension. So I know that was a lot of just words that hopefully made sense, but those were my thoughts on everything.
It's good to see him in form, for his position, and it's good to see him in good form as a magician as well. He was out here doing his thing, man. That guy. It's incredible, man. The fan base took all the. It was, all the attention was on the fans, right? With all the amount of people that were there, the chants and everything. But this man found a way to also take a little bit of that attention on the pitch with his saves. But that moment where he chested it and then his headers, just Nahuel fashion, right? Making him star of the show. Edgar, I know you saw this, when the subs came on, and this is something that I thought was really important. I was talking about it earlier in the thread, and then also tweeted out. What was your impression when you see the three subs at once, where Cordova, Osiel Herrera, and Andre Pierre Gignac are ready to come onto the pitch?
So for me, of course, that was like one of the most exciting moments of, one, just realizing that we were having a pretty good game on the field, and then we still had a lot of firepower to come on and bring something else spectacular for the remainder of the match. I will say, though, when I saw Vigon coming on, and I think it was Tercero, I think they came on together, I leaned over to Dennis. We were in the same section. I was like, mejor nada. Like, what is this? And Vigon shut me up with his second goal. It was great. You saw a lot of effort coming out of him.
Yeah, Vigon is somebody you can count for effort. He's just a high motor. Sometimes, it works in our favor where he's able to, be dangerous in the box. Sometimes it doesn't, but ultimately there's something you can never, complain about Juan Pablo Vigon, his effort. And, he just finds a way to be around the danger zones in the opponent's box. And this time it played out. Juan Bruneta played a dangerous ball into the box where, the rebound was left to Juan Pablo Vigon. And, the campanita aspect of the goal also adds to that element, right? Like it makes it a really good goal. But I'm with you. I think that, when I saw those substitutions and saw those guys getting ready to come on all three at once, I was like, whoa. I was like, we're in a good spot. We've talked about the depth that, the team needed. And, we haven't even seen Joaquin, be ready for Leagues Cups, and it's probably going to be a while. Depends on our obviously progression in this Leagues Cups, where we might not even see him because Diego Reyes is having such a great start to Liga MX season and now Leagues Cup. Guido Pizarro is obviously someone that we can have confidence in, even though he had that mistake of marking in that penalty that occurred in the second half. But ultimately, I think that seeing those players, and again, the form of the team on the pitch is it's a lot of good things that are and positives that are going to be coming together even more as Paunovic figures out a way to continue to, ask the team to carry out his system and, the players get even more shape, because that's the one thing that it's clear. The players are in top shape. Nico Ibanez is flying in there, bringing down balls with his head, acting as a post. I think that that's something that we didn't really see a lot last season with Sibolde, and even during the championship run, because he didn't obviously get the minutes. But when he did, we didn't play a lot in the air. And I think that now we're definitely trying to, skip a line of attack, and he's doing an excellent job of figuring out to be that post and, bringing down balls for the wingers, for the midfielders to continue to expand on build-up. And obviously Marcelo, Osiel Herrera flying, obviously, with his athletic ability. Gignac is obviously in good form as well. But overall, the team and intensity is in really, really, really good form. And it's all due to our preparador físico, Mr. Ortega, Professor Ortega, coming on from Atletico Madrid, who real quickly has found a way to turn up the notch for these Tigres players.
And the intensity is with a purpose. There is a strategy. There's tactics behind it. It's different from the Piojo era where there was a lot of intensity, but it at times didn't seem to serve any purpose, and our players were getting injured a lot. You get a sense that there's been a change in that as well, where I think they're watching film, they're working on some things, their movement is better, they're more efficient with their positioning, and I think that's helping out a lot. It's making the team look really good.
I think the counter press has been really, really good. I'll talk about that when we talk about Pachuca and how important that's going to be. But I feel like in an era of football where that is such a big key element, like the big teams really do that well. Man City, Liverpool, teams like that excel at like winning the ball back immediately and like suffocating fresh ready. Atalanta, that's another great example. That's how they won the Europa League this past year. We've done a much better job of that this season, and that's been really nice to see. Considering we have an old roster, like really that you feel like that wouldn't work out as well, but in 6-7 games so far in all competitions, so far so good.
Yeah, nothing but like I said, positives with what Paunovic has been able to accomplish on the pitch. Let's read some of the little comments that and contributions that we have here from the comments box. So we'll start. Obviously, we saw the one where Tigres takes suggested that 30K fans were at least Tigres fans. The anticipation has been great. Yeah, and just figuring out a way to quickly transition and turning that into an offensive buildup has been great to watch because we haven't really been used to that. And like Lou said, it's with a purpose, and the way that the players are moving on the pitch makes sense. Omar Santos, our friend, checking in from Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. Good to be in this side of the pond and watch the games in a decent time slot. Love the pod. Thank you so much. Jorge Salazar, I really love your podcast. What do you expect for the game against Pachuca and the starting 11? We're going to get into that this next segment. Omar Santos, again, the game was a prelude of things to come. Jorge Salazar, I'm not sure if it's the same one because the other one was from YouTube. This is from X. What do you expect for the game against Pachuca? And do you think we're going to become the League's Cup champions? Definitely going to get into that as well. What do you think about Paunovic? We're going to get into that as well. And then Mark Sheftik, our new friend from Springfield, Illinois. So we met this weekend. And has made me a little bit famous on the social media side with the video that I got of him on the game against Puebla. God, that has made it around social media. Great feedback to Mark coming in with his family from Springfield, Illinois. So you got a friend here with us on the podcast. Mark, we're ready to have you on soon here to share your insight and your story about how you became a fan. So thank you for tuning in. And it was great to meet you, my friend. Your family was really kind. And we love that you guys became fan of Tigres. And so we're looking forward to engaging with you more in the future. So
Glad to see he's a fellow Luis Quinones fan too. So yeah, we got you. We got you, Mark. We'll always mention him.
I can't stand you.
oh man. So a couple of things left on this first segment that Edgar prepared for us in this outline. Did you guys think that if Luis Suarez would have made a difference if he played in this game?
Oh, yes and no. I think first half probably. Um, they had a couple chances that I think if he's the one shooting it, he gets it. But also Campana was really good, especially the second half, right before the penalty, and then like that 10-minute stretch where it kind of felt like we were going to lose the lead right after the penalty. He was everywhere. And for a guy who doesn't, usually start for Miami because of Suarez, um, the way that he impacted the whole game, I thought was really impressive. So I could see how Suarez could have made a difference, but also that's probably the best game Campana's played in a Miami shirt in a long time. So I don't know.
Campana had like a good 20-minute stretch, so he looked really good. There was one where he dribbled past everybody in the midfield. So he got hot there in the second half for a little while, but then he disappeared at times. I'm with you, Dennis. I think it's a mixed bag. With Luis Suarez, they probably would have lost a little bit of pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
You lose a little bit of that in transitions. So I think it could go either way. I mean, Luis Suarez is lethal. So yeah, maybe some of those chances he might have converted. But on the other hand, you lose what Campana was giving you, which is better pace, and and being able to get into the box and create chances for them.
And maybe you also gain, better playmaking and decision making in the final third because Suarez is just, for a striker, he has an uncanny ability to be able to, find passes and read the game way ahead of time. I mean, that's what the four amigos do there for that team. So Campana doesn't do that to that level, unfortunately. So
I, I want to make sure that when they, revise and rewatch the game, I'm sure the team already did, but if they're still like, analyzing, I guess, concepts and strategic aspects from that game to carry over, again, the Pachuca game or even further along if they continue to advance. One of the things that, I really enjoyed from Miami was their corner kicks attempts. They were thought out in that first one that they had. I think it was the first one they had. Is the ball gets to Jordi Alba outside of the box, and it's intended, man. All that intention was there to set him up, and he had a great shot that got deflected by our defense. But I was really impressed with the decision making that they had in corner kicks, and I've talked about it. With the amount of corner kicks that we've had now under the Paunovic area, which goes back to our players taking more shots from outside the box and providing a different weapon than just sending crosses into the box like we were used to for a while at times where our system got a little complacent and stagnant. And so the corner kicks for me was really impressing. What impressed me from Miami. So shout out to them. Like I said, they basically beat us in every statistical category. I thought it was good a product on the field and ultimately a good showing of the magnitude of the opponent that we had, the magnitude of the stadium we had, the magnitude of the fan base supports that we had. So great all around showing for both teams as they both advance in their Leagues Cup. Another question that Mr. Brilliant Edgar produced for this outline. I hadn't thought about it, but it sets up, right? Like, it gets you excited, after the amount of people that attended this game. And he posed the question, will we ever see a friendly versus a European club at the NRG stadium? So what do you guys think about that scenario?
I would love it, man. Who would you bring though, Edgar?
Me personally, AC Milan, just because that's my favorite European club. But I mean, for a while we talked about a rematch against Bayern Munich. Why not have it at the NRG when you see that? For the longest time, like I've been to a bunch of Molero games, more specifically El Tri here at the AT&T, and I've always wondered, like, when would we get an opportunity to see Tigres, in a stadium of that caliber, of that size? But after the experience over the weekend, I think that it could definitely happen without question. Like Alfred mentioned, at least 30,000 fans were Tigres fans. If you bring in a European club, you are definitely going to fill that stadium. I also saw a lot of jerseys from other teams walking around. They looked a little bit lost, but they were there to see Tigres. They were there to see the MLS leaders, and I think that we could fill that stadium.
I think the issue with that right now is because we haven't finished first place points wise in our league over a calendar year. We don't get an automatic bye. And so think about how America's been able to have friendlies recently. Like they had that friendly against Chelsea last week. That's because they're not playing until this week. And so we need to do our part in the league to make sure we can get a bye in Leagues Cup next year. Or hopefully the schedule works out to where, we play both of our group stage games like later, like we don't play first, or we play the first two and we get the last one off, and maybe we can try to squeeze it in between there, because trying to do it after, like if we get eliminated early, like that's just not possible really with all the logistics that go into that. So just thinking about it from that angle, it's probably really hard to do it more than previous years. I mean, obviously I want to see it happen against whoever, but I think with this League's Cup being a thing, it's a little bit more tricky to try to pull that off in the summertime when all these European teams come here to America. So
We also have friends at Olympique de Marseille, so
we do.
just saying.
Yeah, I think though, in the grand scheme of things, the perfect scenario would be to finish the league with the most points and have this bye week that America has, which obviously could be great, or it can also work in their favor because of the lack of participation that they're having against the competition. I know that they're having these friendly matches, but how much of those friendly matches are actually taken serious, especially by the European clubs? So, and what I mean, not that they're not taking it serious, because I think they're professionals, but I think they're just getting into preseason form, so they're not really worried about the result. So yes, I do agree with you that on that part, Dennis, that in a scenario where we finish top of the league and we get the buys, you squeeze those in for the Leagues Cup. But I think I'm thinking a little bit beyond that with everything that we've accomplished over the last decade. I think it's time for I mean, I hadn't thought about it until Edgar posed this question. But ultimately, I think that it's time for the brand and the club to take that step, right? Like, you want to have that international game or match, and what better way to do it in the States, where you now have proven to have great presence, here in Houston, and other games in San Antonio in the past, in Austin. I know that they're I don't know what's going on. They're blacklisting Dallas. That doesn't happen over there, but I know we had a game over there a couple years ago. But ultimately, I think that it's the next step, and taking that brand in a higher step. We have sort of a partnership that nothing really has come out of with, like, Bayern Munich, besides we send a couple of players like every season, or every calendar year. We have a partnership with Feyenoord and the Dutch league. Not sure really what that entails, and I just know that they formed a partnership. It might just be a social media partnership. I know that Tigres in the past has visited Real Madrid, but I'm not asking for Barcelona. I'm not asking for Real Madrid or Manchester United. I don't think we need to bring a top heavy league, but Alfred is suggesting Marseille for Gignac's farewell game. I think that's
Farewell.
already.
We're not ready for that conversation.
But I,
Alf.
but, but
Amen.
but we know that's going to happen. Like, whether that's in the works or not, like, that's a must. I think that's the perfect way to honor this man, to everything that he's given for our club. But I still think that the team should focus on having that international match, especially with the audience that we had at Energy Stadium for this Leagues Cup game.
The other thing that I was just thinking about that I forgot is that at least in the Bundesliga and in La Liga, they take a winter break. So that's another time that you could do it, because I do remember, I don't know if y'all remember it either, but America played Barcelona like 2 days after the final that we played them in last winter, like out of nowhere, because Barcelona needed money. And so you could do it then during that little stage in between Apertura and Clausura, if you can find a willing team from either of those leagues, or maybe the Italian league does that too. The Premier League, I know, does not do that, but you could try it and find some team from Europe during that time where breaks are happening, and see what you could do.
Yeah, I think that was a great little scenario that you introduced there, Edgar. So hopefully that comes to realization and we manifest it. Moving on, fellas, to our next segment. We have Tigres versus Pachuca. I know that, you know, for the most part of our, time watching Tigres, our times or in matches against Pachuca haven't been in the best scenario for us. Obviously, going back all the way to 2001, 2003 finals that we lost against them, and then the CONCACAF, if I'm not mistaken, in 2017.
2017, yeah.
And then several other Liguilla matches were just matches in at their house, where we haven't been able to pull through the victories. So Tigres Pachuca, and we are hosting once again, not in Houston, but 2.5 hours down the road from Houston, in your hometown, Austin, Texas. Lou, what are your reactions to the game being hosted there against Pachuca?
Man, I love it. It's central, so I like the fact that it's going to be close for the San Antonio folks, just an hour drive away, only 3 hours away for the Dallas folks, 3 hours away from the Houston folks, plus anybody else here in the Central Texas area we can all meet here on Thursday. Great food, great best barbecue in the world, great live music. If you're on the fence, do it. Pop on those tickets. It's going to be a great matchup, great atmosphere, great stadium too. Probably one of the best MLS stadiums right now. Currently, is maybe one or two better, but it's definitely in the top three of best stadiums. Really good parking, lots of good restaurants around. Plus, you get to watch Tigres. What else could you ask for?
You taking us to Terry Black's on Thursday, or
Ooh, man, maybe we can make that happen, Dennis.
This podcast is not sponsored by
Hashtag
Terry.
sponsored.
but we will take it if y'all are offering Terry Black's people.
Yeah, Terry Black's is great. I mean, Austin definitely has great barbecue. I'll give you that. Not the best tacos like we were talking about down there in Austin. You find those in Houston, but barbecue for sure. Edgar, thoughts on us hosting a game in Austin against Pachuca?
That's not what I meant when I said North Texas. But we moved a little bit up the road, so I'll take it. Nah, but I mean, if we're being honest, Austin's a great city to host Tigres. Like Lou mentioned, it's close to everybody. So for a midweek game, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it. But for a lot of people, it's a lot more accessible than. I mean, I know driving from Houston to Frisco, because all of our North Texas games have always been in Frisco, is an inconvenience. So I think Austin's a great city, and I hope that we see the exact same turnout that we saw at the NRG. Packed stadium, lots of yellow.
What? How many people fit in that stadium, Lou?
21,773, almost 22,000.
Okay, so right about the Dynamo Stadium. I didn't get the official Dynamo Stadium attendance, but if I had to guess, that was probably in the tens.
I think it was 12.
12. Okay, great.
That was
So
bad.
I think that we could definitely do better than that with Austin being a little bit more accessible to that area of Tigres fans, like you mentioned, San Antonio, even Dallas per se, and then Houston, of course. So it's a Thursday game, so a day later than the Wednesday game that we had against Puebla. Some people call that Friday Junior, so sometimes some people don't go to work. So I think that it should be a little bit better attendance. But let's talk about the opponent, Pachuca. Pachuca is coming off a 2-1 loss to Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, and then a tie against Red Bulls, but they advanced in penalty, or they beat them in penalties. Is that correct, Dennis?
Yeah, yes. They won. The reason why they are over Red Bull is because Red Bull lost head-to-head to both on penalties. And so that's the first tiebreaker in the groups. So Pachuca, by that virtue, is moving on.
Was that stated in the rules? I mean,
Yes.
I know that you took. Okay, good.
Yes,
Because
it
I don't,
is.
I don't want these made up rules like we had last year as we got into the round of 32. So, so it is in the rule book. That's fair. So, Pachuca, again, it's a team that we've struggled in the past. They're a very dynamic team. I saw a meme today, or a picture of it was a tweet, and the tweet said Idrisi Rondon. And I think they stated Angel Mena, which I wasn't even familiar with the fact that Angel Mena is on Pachuca. Is that right? Is that sound correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So the tweet was Salomon Rondon, Idrisi, and Angel Mena when they play Tigres, and it was a picture of Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, and Adriano. Because Pachuca tends to do that. They tend to, up their play when they play Tigres. It's like they see Tigres, it's like we have to beat them. We gotta make sure we show out, and so it's an opponent that it's not a favorable opponent for us prior us going into the season as far as what the changes were going to be, because they're typically a more dynamic team, and historically Tigres has struggled against more dynamic teams. But I think now I feel like the team has a better chance to handle that dynamic aspect, because Tigres is able to give up the ball a little bit more, as we saw in the Miami game, where they gave up the possession of the ball and allow Pachuca to be dynamic and do whatever they got to do, and just be a lot more precise and strategic. Again, going back to that strategy aspect under Panovich with how they approach the Pachuca game. So, what do we expect out of this game, Blue? What do you expect some changes in the lineup? Edgar's, and the outline suggests that will we be able to see Diego Lainez in the starting lineup?
I would love to see Linus in. If you kept the same 11 from the Inter Miami game and just plugged in Linus for LQ, I think you got a really nice lineup. As far as Pachuca's concerned, they looked terrible against Toronto. For a good 80 minutes of that game, they were very vulnerable. Their back line looks in rough shape right now. They're in league play. They got what, 4 points, one win, one draw, and four losses. And just frankly, a Toronto team that's not very good overwhelmed them for a large portion of that game and had the game in control. So I think, it should be on paper, it should be a relatively winnable game. But you did mention the fact that they just turn into a monster when they play us, and so I I expect I expect them to come out and look like the 2006 Pachuca that won the Copa Sudamericana. I mean, they do have some great talent on the pitch, but I trust our squad. I trust our leaders. I think we're gonna put a good game plan together and overwhelm them.
So you mentioned same lineup and just plug in Linus that you would love to see. So no APG from the get go at Q2 Stadium.
I would go with Nico, man. I would keep it the same.
Woo!
I know you guys don't love him, but Nico worked really well with Brunetta and Marcelo Flores with Gorri. That dynamic was really nice to watch live, and I kind of like to see that they keep that going.
Man.
Maybe give him 50 minutes, and then let APG have 40, depending on the situation, But I think you keep the same 11, plug in Linus instead of LQ. Now you've got two options on both wings. Where against Inter Miami, we were just playing up Flores' side. So
So Dennis, you don't think he's going to go complete, 4 or 5 changes going from the Puebla game to the Miami game to now Pachuca game? Maybe even giving Ociel the start over LQ, or maybe even Cordova the start over Brunetta. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the lineup moving it around?
I think if Linus played by now, we would have seen it. Like, I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't gotten any run if he's been fit. So maybe I'm reading too deep into it, but I don't know if I'd throw him in, at least to start. Personally, if I was Spanovich, my front four offensively would be the BCG and Marcelo. That would be what I would do. Is that going to happen? Probably not, but that would be what I would do. And then keep everything else the same. The back line really strong. I'm curious if Garza will be back next game. He wasn't even on the bench on Saturday, so hopefully he's back around and at least available on Thursday. That's kind of how I feel as far as like changes he could make. But knowing him, he's gonna keep LQ in, and the first 45 minutes will be a waste. So
No, he didn't start against Puebla, so we don't know that for sure. I think that if we see another rotation of wing play and Brunetta, or I think if he makes more than 3 changes going into the game, then I truly believe that he's going to do that consistently throughout the remaining of the Leagues Cup and then heading back to Liga MX, which if he gets it down, man, I think is what's going to really put us over the top. We haven't seen obviously America play. Rayados is in shambles, and Cruz Azul bad Leagues Cup run, but they're a good coach team, so I think that they eventually will get back to what they're doing. Pumas obviously got beat by Austin, was able to advance on penalties against Rayados. But if he gets it right, man, and then, like I said, if he makes more than 3 changes, I think he's going to continue to do that throughout the remaining of the schedule, and that is going to be our indication where we're going to have to sit here every pod recording and trying to figure out his lineups, because I think like I mentioned, 7 games so far, and in 6 games he's changed the complete lineup. He's only repeated the lineup twice.
watch them go with a 4-4-2. Here
And
we
two
are.
strikers.
Yeah, here we are thinking 4-2-3-1, but watch them come out with a 4-4-2.
Yeah, I
And
think that,
he's mixed it up.
but that's the cool thing about it now, and I think that we weren't really doing that with Siboldi, and I think that's where he lacked a little bit of he did make changes, and for the most part, especially during the championship run, and then a little bit in his second season, he was making changes, but the changes were basically position for position, which Panovich is obviously doing, but the lineup selection, I think is getting the players to buy in and making the players feel important that they have a role on this team and they're going to be part of the success moving forward. Think about Cordova not, coming off the bench or Brunetta going to the bench and now, having a great game and, just keeping them on their toes. So Ciel Herrera getting starts and then going to the bench. Marcelo Flores having great games, goals, assists last season, and then, going to the bench a little bit. Lainez starting most of the season, gets hurt, and then now it's right in the bench, which I think it's more on he got fit, Dennis, because that's what was reported. He was training and he did get fit. But I think I saw Roberto Flores from Multimedios, probably the only good source out of Multimedios, say that una sobrecarga muscular, which is just basically, what's my ESO here? Lou, where am I going blank on the translation? Muscle fatigue?
Yeah.
Muscle fatigue.
Yeah.
So basically, he just needs more training. And I'm sure with the intensity coming back from injury did not help. So I think he will get plugged in eventually. And Tigres take as long as he doesn't rotate Samir. He's out, man. I think that, he's clearly the player that is going, away. Because if not, Eduardo Tercero and Purata would not be getting minutes in the League's Cup. And so ultimately, like I said, if he does make 3 changes, I think it'll be an indication of what to expect with the player selection, which I think it can work out great for the team.
And it is the one part of the field that he can't change, because really you can't rotate as much in midfield, and you definitely can't rotate as much in defense, especially right now. Not until Joaquin's ready. You can rotate Garza in and out, but that's really about it. You can rotate Vigo in and out, but that's really about it. On the attack, you can do whatever. So I understand why he's doing it, but I just have my own ideas, as we all do.
Well, if the rumor is true and we are getting a new midfielder, we could have a little more rotation in that midfield position.
Edgar, did I cut you off? Then I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I forgot what I was gonna say, but on that little rumor, do you want to get into it now? Do we need that person?
Yeah, why not? We're talking about midfield depth. Why not? So it's been rumored that Luis Chavez, a former Pachuca player, might be arriving at Tigres. The rumor hasn't, picked up a lot of traction. Arispe, which for the most part, he's wrong about a lot of things, but the source, I think it's a hit or miss with him, especially since he left wherever he was at prior to him going now to Multimedios and Medio Tiempo. I think that's where he's at. But before that, he was a lot more, spot on with like his exclusives. And obviously they were coming from the team because, as you all know, they call him La Secretaria. But he did report that they were after a Mexican. And so, I don't think he throws that out a lot. And I think that his information at times could be correct. And, it's not really far-fetched. And then we saw another account today that Lou sent out to us called Desde la Interna, talking about that not only, which is our next segment to talk about, our new sporting director or GM in American terms, Gerardo Torrado, who is scheduled to be presented tomorrow, Tuesday at 10 a.m., where he's going to have a special delivery, which is Luis Chavez coming back from Russia to add depth to our midfield. And I wouldn't be surprised if Paunovic was after Nene Beltran, a guy that he knew from Chivas. So obviously the midfield is somewhere that he was looking. And, I know that Piojo Alvarado was also an option. So he likes those type of players that can go forward and provide some attacking options. Luis Chavez, 28 years old, going to Russia, paying his own buyout clause, and then, possibly coming back. So what do we think about that rumor coming in?
So
I know
I
you
don't
got. Go ahead, Edgar.
I don't necessarily love it, but I mean, Vigon's kind of, more out than in, just because I think he was already 30 when we got him from Pumas, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not bad, but I don't necessarily see it as, someone to necessarily come in and compete for a position in the starting 11, which is what I would have preferred. But it's not terrible, and I know that we're limited on national options, so.
Man, I'm really excited about it. I know like most of you guys are not that
I'm
excited,
in.
but that is, if we could sign that guy, it's gonna really make us fly. I know we're pretty set with Gorri and Carioca and that central mid positions, but you're adding another guy that can come in and just give you a really great spark, either as a starter or on the bench or rotated in, as Pauno has shown that he doesn't mind changing up starting 11. So you're adding a guy who defensively is pretty solid, but is also a great outside the box shooter. And with as many options as we're generating and crosses into the box as we're generating, having a guy just outside the box that has a clean strike like him, I just see us scoring a lot more goals this season if we can land a guy like that. It really does excite me. The only other name that would have gotten me this hyped up would have been Maxi Araujo, but this guy, I think for one, he wants to be at Tigres, and he is the right piece for it. He's got the motor for it. He's got the talent, the skill for that position, and I think it's one of those players that Pauno can definitely make better.
Yeah, set piece wise, we just talked about not having great corners the other night. He would help out with that a lot. He would help out on free kicks quite a lot. I'm in too, honestly. I think he would be a really nice piece. And I think with specifically with this trend that I've been seeing with Pauno so far is that Brunetta is drifting out left a lot more than he was in the spring and kind of acting sometimes as a left winger. Not completely, but sometimes. And so I wonder, just dreaming up, if you could maybe see at some points a midfield where you have Goriaran and Chavez and Carioca, which I don't know if that would work, but let's just say because he likes to rotate, you could have those three, and then you could have Cordova and Brunetta out on the wings. That could be a thing, I'm just thinking about like the versatility that would add to lineups because again, like midfield wise, it is pretty limited because outside of Vigon, Carioca, and Goriran right now, you're looking at Fierro, and Fierro proved the last time he had an opportunity that he is not up for it.
And he would have played already.
Yeah, in that Columbus CONCACAF games. So
He's dead to me ever since he started hanging out with Alan Pulido.
Fair. So
Yeah.
I would love it. I'm curious to see what the money would look like on that, as far as like a transfer fee goes. But I would be all for it. And again, it's another Mexican on the roster that would comply with all the dumb rules that our league has.
I think we'd have to pay for him in bags of cement.
Cemex.
Cemex bags.
Cemex is putting up their Dominican Republic franchise or operations for sale for $950 million. So I think they can afford it. Three things for me to that rumor. The first is he played in our youth academy, so he knows the club. The second thing, let's be real, Carioca has 6 months left on his contract, so he adds immediate depth. And lastly, you touched upon it, Dennis, it gives you different ways to line up, not only with the rotation aspect of the depth, but also the foreign slots. Think about what you can do now because you don't have to start both foreign midfielders in Fernando Goriaran and Rafael Carioca, and then possibly Joaquin and Guido Pizarro in the back. So it gives you that option to have another Mexican on the field and able to have a better rotation of how to use the foreigners, with the rules that Liga MX has with the amount of players that can be on the field at once. And then you can also do, your two strikers that he also has now shown us to play with. So it gives you a ton of options when you add another Mexican player to the lineup who is of high caliber in this case, and provides something that we don't really have on the squad besides, Bruneta and Cordova, who's somebody that would add to that long distance shootings. I know that Rafa obviously has a cannon, but obviously plays a little further back. Nando obviously can shoot as well, but it's not something that we see a lot of him using that as a weapon. So I think that just adding that to our midfield, and like you mentioned, he played Cordova wide with 3 center mids and 3 attackers up top. So it can be done. And I think that Paunovic is an excellent strategist in terms of like X's and O's. And I think that having specific coaches that deal with different aspects of the game, and adding a player like that will contribute tremendously for what Tigres is looking to do in the long run. Obviously, rejuvenating the squad. You kind of cover yourself in case, or once Carioca leaves, because again, 6 months left of contract. Who knows if he's going to get renewed? He might not. I think that, my theory is part of the plan as to why they didn't move forward with Siboldi and they wanted to bring Paunovic in, because it's somebody that is not going to be afraid of the generational change. And we are seeing it with the lineups and sitting of players that are happening throughout his tenure so far. Shout out to Alan Chuck Norris Pulido.
So for those that don't understand the reference or the joke there, Alan Pulido is called Chuck Norris because he was what's the word, kidnapped by one of the cartels in Ciudad Victoria, Tamaulipas, and he escaped miraculously. So that's the Chuck Norris.
Freed himself.
That's where the Chuck Norris comes in.
Oh,
Freed
goodness.
himself the same way he freed himself of that Tigres contract that allegedly never got signed.
Right. Got a little off topic there, obviously talking about the rumor, but quickly, predictions of that Pachuca game. What are we thinking for scoreboard?
3-1 Tigres.
Ooh. Edgar?
I was going to go with another 2-1 victory.
Dennis?
I'll say 2-1. The last thing I'll say about that game is that it's important we score first. You guys remember the one time we haven't won the season against Atlas? What happened in that game? Who scored first?
Atlas.
All the other games, who scored first? We did.
We did.
So if we score first, we probably win. So can't play from behind against this team, especially with how dynamic they are, even though they've, kind of had some changes to their personnel. We've got to contain Rondon big time. That's kind of how I feel. And don't make any errors, because that's a team that will punish you for their errors. Miami didn't do a great job of that on Saturday. I don't know if we can get away with that on Thursday. And also, by the way, if you're thinking about yellow cards, it's 3 before you get suspended through the round of 16. So I don't know where our players are with that, but I think everybody that's gotten one only has 1. Like nobody has 2. So they cancel out after the round of 16 is over if we get there. So nobody's really at risk. But also don't be too crazy, players, on Thursday. 2-1.
Oh my
2-1.
God. Malandro saying 2-2 PK win.
Sufrir.
Why is he doing this to us?
Anybody else got some more comments as far as prediction? Edgar's saying we go 2-1 win. And I'm going with a 2-0 victory. I think the defense finds a way to shut them out. I think it's going to work in our favor, and we're going to continue to move on in this Leagues Cup into the round of 16. So send us your predictions in the comments wherever you're watching, and we'll make sure we shout them out while we continue to record the pod. Next segment, fellas. We have a new sporting director, like I mentioned, and I touched upon it as we were talking about the rumor with Luis Chavez. Gerardo Torrado, former Cruz Azul player, national team director of like youth or something somewhere. He had some type of role there. Basically, not enough experience to come and take over into what Sancho's role is or was. What do we think in reactions as Gerardo Torrado takes on our club role?
I'm not excited, to be honest with you. It's not a name that excites me. I think it's kind of more of the same. This is a good opportunity to get out of the carousel that's Mexico. Um, like I've said before, this front office has refused to make a big splash with big signings of that sort. Honestly, Profe Ortega has been our best signing so far, right?
Yeah.
That's been the biggest splash. So I mean, Gerardo Torrado resume is also not great. He's coming in from a federation that's in a free fall. You know, the Mexican Federation. That's not something you want to have on your resume. It's just today. Today, the Federation tweeted out that a former 1994 World Cup player, Jorge Rodriguez, had died. They killed off this man, and he's not dead. So
Jesus.
that kind of tells you the state of the Federation, you know. And so we're getting a guy from that team coming over here. So it's not good. But you know, I wish him the most success. I hope he has a great 10 years ahead of him or whatever it is. I hope he does great, but it doesn't excite me at all.
Anybody wants to add to the negative addition to our squad?
Mejor nada. I mean, I don't know if I said it on here, but the stuffed tiger would probably do a better job than Gerardo Torrado. And like Alfred mentioned, I mean, the bar is already pretty low with Sancho. He was doing nothing but hanging out in his office and I don't know, probably scrolling on Twitter, reading our comments, but not much was going on.
Edgar's saying just make APG the sporting director when he retires, and that would be pretty awesome, actually.
That might be why you put Gerardo Torrado in place, because it's a short term to fill in a role because he knows Culebro. You know, with everything that may come about the whole debacle and Siboldi gate, you push Torrado out. You know, you push Culebro out. You bring a new president in, and then you bring APG.
That would work.
I have no strong opinion. I had no idea who he was until today. So
Really, you didn't
Really?
see Gerardo Torrado and when, bro, that guy's a chopping block, bro.
nope.
Dude, he's a player that I remember growing up that I understood why he was selected to start on the national team, and he even had a little stint in Europe for a little while. He came out of Pumas, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lou. That's where his youth development was. Went to Europe, and then came to Cruz Azul. And every time that I watched a Mexican national team growing up, a game, I hated that this man was in the lineup because I hated that technically he didn't provide anything. He was just a guy that was going to run a lot and have a nasty face on his face and then foul people a lot. And so I hate
just like Sancho then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at least Sancho played for my club, and so he was the Mari Carmen Reyes of old, right? He knew he was going to get a yellow or a red card in the game, but he was going to leave it all on the pitch. But at least he had some technical ability, you know, Sancho, and he was intelligent, right? And so not so much in the role, right? But ultimately, I thought he was an intelligent player. But Torrado was just a dirty player, man. A dirty player, you know, a great value, Russo Samorghini. And, you know, it just, I hated watching him on the national team. For me to have this guy take on the role of our sporting director when you accomplished so much in the last 10 years and further back, there's not someone that you can hire, you know, that's working in, you know, an office in, you know, Bayern Munich or an office in, you know, Feyenoord or an office in Ajax or an office at AC Milan or an office at Real Madrid or an office of, like, we have contacts, man. Our team has had great players throughout our history that we could have had some type of contacts for someone to put us in contact with a good sporting director or GM to take over this role. And even if it was for the short term, because I do truly believe that role is, going to be for APG. I don't think APG is going to be a good coach, but I think he could be an excellent GM of the club. So I have a lot of difficulty processing that this guy is going to be the guy running the sporting side for our club, and I don't expect anything. I really don't. I think that the club is going to be fine with him at the position or without him at the position.
But it's been the story of Tigres the last 3 months. We've been flying by the seat of our pants. We've been putting out fires. We've been making frantic decisions because of emergencies. And so it's kind of been our story, right? We fired Sancho out of nowhere. There's been no reason why he got fired, but we got rid of Sancho, and then it's just an emergency now, right? We're in panic mode, so we go and do what's easy. For Culebro, obviously, what's going to be easy is reaching out to his contacts in Mexico City, and I think that's exactly what we saw. I think at some point we have to catch up, make everything slow down, and start making better decisions so we're not being frantic and just making decisions where we're forced. It seems like everything's been forced upon us. Players that we can't get rid of, like Samir, like Luis Quiñones, like Igor Lichnowsky. All these things that are just we're not playing our cards right. So at some point we're gonna have to fix that.
Yeah. So uh, I'm just going to go ahead and add this little part that Edgar included in the outline, a group prayer for our club.
Let's
for
all hold hands here.
for the new Gerardo Torrado sporting director. God, we could have done so much better, but it is what it is. Good luck to him, and I hope that he does bring Luis Chavez with him. And if he does, I will back off and with my hate.
Have mercy on us, soccer gods.
Absolutely. Next topic, fellas, as we get into the last part of the pod here. Chicha Sanchez, golazo in the CONCACAF or for the U20, where they were able to get the CONCACAF title. Obviously, he's going to play. He's going to have to play because we're in that role where, we got to make the minutes that the league is asking and forcing us to use youth players. And Marcelo Flores contributes to that, but with a lower percentage. I think it's like 25% of his minutes actually count towards the overall stat, which is 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. And so Chicha Sanchez is a player who, because he's with the national team, with the youth national team, his minutes are going to transition and add to our minutes once he steps on the pitch for an X amount of games, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on the games part, but I know his minutes will be added if he does get regular minutes in league play. So ultimately, we know he's going to play because we don't have anybody else that is going to get us over the line of 1,000 minutes as far as meeting the league minimum, which I don't agree with that rule, but it is what it is. They tried it in the past and nothing really came about it. We haven't produced a generational talent since that rule came about earlier on. Probably about 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and then now again this time around. So what do we think about Chicha and his possible future contributions to the squad?
I really like the kid, man. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's humble. I noticed that he has this attitude of hard work. I mean, I don't want to say the word perfil tigre, but he's got it. He's blue collar, willing to put in the work. He's willing to work extra. Really impressed with what they were able to do at this tournament because twice they came from behind. They were down to Costa Rica, turned it around with that golazo from Chicha, and then down 1-0 to the U.S. and scored in stoppage time to send it to overtime and then win the game late in overtime. So the kid has been impressive. He's in the interviews. He's spoken really well. He's dedicated all his wins to his grandma and his family. And so I think he's got a good base, and I think he's going to be a player that we need to keep an eye on.
Dennis, I'm going to put you on Google duty. Tigres takes, what's the penalty for not meeting the required minutes? So Alfred will get you that answer.
How's Alfred coming in here, not showing up to the pod and then giving us homework, man? What is this?
American lifestyle. Um, any last thoughts, Edgar, on Chicha?
I mean, I think he's really great. It's great to see that we do have talent coming in from our youth once again. Hopefully, he's not the last one for a while. I know it's usually we get one good player, then it's 5, 6 years of nothing, and then we get another good player, and they get sold or used as or let go for free. I mean, we let Ronaldo Nájera, who was not the best, but he had a little bit of potential. We let him go for free to Atlético San Luis, but hopefully that's not the case with this kid. Hopefully we do see him around in Tigres for a long time, and hopefully he does get kind of the same treatment we saw with Marcelo Flores. A couple of easier games against Mazatlán, Puebla in the starting lineup. Let's see what you got. 45 minutes, especially with Paunovic, who loves his rotations. I do want to see that.
Yeah, and Panovich spoke about him in the press conference recently. So I think he does have a shot. And I think because he's a hometown player, I think he has a little bit more of a, push in terms of, get him on the pitch. Fan base reacted really well in his debut that he had last season. He almost scored a golazo in that game. So I think ultimately, like I said, he does get the minutes and helps us with the rule requirement for the 1,000 minutes. You got the penalty?
There's a fine involved, but apparently if you don't reach the goal, you lose 3 points.
Oh, wow. So he's definitely playing. We ain't got to worry about that.
Kind of wild.
I love our league.
Yeah, love the league. It's like, it's going to help us produce Rafa Marquez again by setting the minutes rule. Crazy.
And let's make him wait 2 years to get the national team job when he could just already have it.
Yeah. Terrible. Lastly, Amazonas. And, they're getting back to play into Liga MX Femenil after not a successful Summer Cup in the United States, where they were able to beat Pachuca at home with a 4-2 victory against Pachuca 4-2 victory, and then they lost to the Dash 2-1 and then 4-1 to the Kansas City Current. What do we expect of the Amazonas going back again to league play?
Well, I don't know if I expect it, but I hope that we find some form before going to get champions, because I don't want to get embarrassed in that.
There's a lot of time in between now. Well, in between the end of the KC game and the next game. They don't play till the 12th of August.
Against
So
Toluca.
that long layoff is going to be brutal. Hopefully we don't lose our rhythm. And then you're playing a really tough Toluca team, and that Toluca impressed me last season when we played them. I thought their midfield was really dynamic. They pressed really well, and they're a lot better this season. They just keep getting better, and so it's going to be a really tough game to get back in the swing of things. And don't be surprised if we struggle against them on the 12th, because Toluca is legit. I think they're going to be a top 5 team. So we'll see what happens, and I'm not confident. I think Mila needs to go the way of Tan Ortiz. Just saying.
You gotta be taking a breakfast, bro. You gotta invite her to breakfast.
Do we have la Señora Lozano version of type of fan in Tigres? No, right? Nobody that could show up at the airport and put a sign behind her or anything.
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed I share a last name with that lady. That's terrible. That's a terrible look on the fan base. That lady. Anyways, will we have Jenny Hermoso back for that game after the Olympics?
Should be, yeah. Because Spain's in the final, right? Who do they play? France or Egypt?
France and Spain on the men's side.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I don't know. No, the women's final or semis, I think, are tomorrow.
Yeah, because I know the U.S. is still in it. So
yes,
we might not.
They play Germany.
Yeah, we might not have. And then Spain plays Brazil, right?
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay, so I don't think we'll have her. And if we do, I mean, I don't see her getting the minutes in that match against Toluca. But nonetheless, they got to get it together, man. We got to figure it out. We didn't look good against, obviously, Kansas City. We didn't look good against the Dash. in that second half. And, even at the Pachuca game where we started the Summer Cup, we had some defensive struggles there too. So nonetheless, we got to figure it out.
Well,
And
and the other thing too is that even if they don't win tomorrow, they have to play a bronze medal match on Friday. So
so,
she's probably
Yeah.
no shot. She makes it back.
okay. But she did score a goal coming off the bench for Spain. So shout out to Jenny Hermoso, killing it always on the national team and struggling with Tigres Femenil.
Well, she's playing holding mid with us, so can't fault her too much.
Fellas, here comes the negative part that I had to throw in. Our from the vault moment. I don't know if you guys have some, but I have a from the vault moment.
Why you got to bring up Libertadores, man?
So
You know
a
that
from,
hurts.
if some of you guys are first tuning into our episode and just catching up on our show, we have a segment in the show that we call From the Vault, where we talk about things that come up, that've happened in the past, and we come across on our social media accounts. And I couldn't remember, but until today, I saw that in what was it now? 9 years ago in 2015, we lost the final in Argentina against River Plate, 3-0 to be the runner-up in the Copa Libertadores, be one of three teams, Chivas and Cruz Azul, and then us as the only Mexican teams to have that honor per se. I miss Libertadores. I was talking with Mark earlier when I was interviewing and getting to know his story about being a fan of Tigres, and he brought up Libertadores, and it's crazy that 9 years ago that happened. Wish we had a better result there.
Next year for the anniversary, we just need to do a special pod where we all grieve. Just let it all out. We can cry. We can just let it everything out, all our anger, pent up frustrations, everything. Just talk it out. Let's vent. Next year, bro, 10-year anniversary. Just let it all go. I got so much to say. I've pent it up here in my heart.
That'd be cool, actually, to revisit the entire run that they had, because, dude, that was peak Tigres in terms of like matches won in Liga MX and Libertadores. I know
Those
that
two games against River twice were really good games, bro. I mean, we had them on the ropes for 80 minutes of that game. I mean, there was some really good games. That Internacional game to me has been one of my favorite all times, outside of maybe 2017 Apertura final, but it's up there for me.
Damian Alvarez and Juninho both stated in the docuseries that is the best game that they have played at El Volcán. And they were around for quite a bit. And now they've seen quite a bit of Tigres football. So ultimately, I think that carries a lot of weight. And that game against Inter, that second leg at home, the way that, we definitely, the fan base showed out. Libres y Locos, obviously. So I think it's a good idea, Lou, for us to do a 10-year anniversary next year of our Libertadores run that we had, where we were runner-ups. Tigres takes. I know that he threw in his comment that people still talk about Libertadores run in South America. Also, his tweet: when someone says, if you could change the outcome of one game in your club's history, I'm always torn between this one and Club World Cup versus Bayern. I feel like winning the Libertadores would have changed everything, not just for Tigres, but for Liga MX and CONCACAF. Great point there, Alfred, that you made on your Tigres Takes account. Make sure you followed Alfred on his new Tigres Takes account at Tigres Take. Fellas, anything that you guys would like to contribute from the vault to maybe switch it around and add a positive contribution here after I went negative there?
I'm too sad.
No, you ruined the mood, Arnoldo. We're all sad now.
I tend to do that. How about we just hate on Luis Quiñones and we get a happy outlet?
Hey,
here we go. Here's the
Quiñones
question.
for sure.
For sure.
People say the Bayern game was a bit cheated. Do you believe that? There was a controversial handball there, but I don't think it would have changed too much of the outcome there. I think that Bayern Munich was the better team. But
that Bayern squad was phenomenal. How bad did they beat Barcelona that year? Was it 6-0?
Dude, that was
I
their
mean, they
treble-winning
were
side. They were
destroying. They were
great. Yeah,
destroying squads, man.
yeah. The Libertadores bit, however, like River Plate shouldn't even made the final. We let them back into the knockout stage because we were in the
Yeah.
same group as them, and look what happened.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Rafa Solis publicly said, he felt that going into that game there was just no chance of us winning because
he did say
CONMEBOL
that.
wouldn't allow it. And to an extent, I
Yeah.
feel that way. That's why that
Well,
memory is.
Conmebol dirty pulled us right off the bat by not letting us close at home. Some
Yeah,
stupid rule,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That it
for
has
sure.
it has to close in South America, whatever.
Yeah,
They just had a Copa America in the U.S. They didn't have any issues with that.
nope.
oh wow. All right, well,
Oh, by the way, Arnoldo, we didn't address the one of the chat questions, which they said, how far of a run do we think
Oh
Tigres will
yeah.
make in this League's Cup? I don't know what you guys think, but I could definitely see us reaching the final.
I'm very confident. I've spoken to two people in the last 10 days who have interviewed for the pod to release, their stories about Tigres and, a little bit different from what we do here, where we analyze games and talk about what's going on with the team. And both feel confident about Tigres winning the League's Cup. And I tend to believe that. I really do. I'm curious to see how America is going to come out with obviously getting all their players back and having these matches against European teams and back-to-back champions of the league. So obviously they can be a candidate to win it. But I do believe that we do have a shot, and I've liked the way that we played. I still think that there's room for improvement. So I'm with it. I'm riding the confidence train all the way to the final.
I think if we win that quarterfinal, because it's probably going to be against either Miami again or Columbus. If we get through that, we make the final. I truly believe that. But that is going to be a massive game if we get there, of course.
Yeah.
Speaking of America, I think Atlas is playing them now that results have kind of uh, shaken out. Shout out Leon for losing on penalties, so they're out. Um, Shout out to Luca for winning. I think we can make the final for sure. Um, but it all depends on, you know, how the rest of the bracket shakes out. And also, this stretch of Leagues Cup is really tough because fatigue will start to set in, and there's a lot of games and not a lot of days for everybody. And so, how will we deal with that with our older roster and with the style of play that we want to have? So
Yeah, I'm looking at the bracket now. The for sure matches that we have in the round of 32 are America Atlas on the left side, St. Louis, Portland, Houston, which advanced tonight 3-0 against Toluca. Colorado against Juarez. All right, Juarez.
oh, game of the tournament right there, baby.
Seattle versus LA, Vancouver versus Pumas, San Jose versus Necaxa, LAFC versus Austin, Texas. And then on the right side of the bracket, we're still waiting for Club to play Columbus. And then they would play the winner out of Miami and Toronto, which is already set. And then right above that, NYC is waiting for an opponent. And above that is Tigres and Pachuca. So if we advance, we would play NYC and to be determined team, and then any of the three teams like Miami, Toronto, Columbus, and that fourth team with we don't know yet. Orlando is playing Cruz Azul. DC United is waiting on an opponent. Philadelphia versus Montreal. Cincinnati versus Santos. So it's still a lot to up in the air, but I think ultimately we do make a run, and I think that like you talked about that Columbus game, and Tigres fan 24 is saying that the 2023 Columbus game was scary and Columbus was scary for sure, and so I think that we do have the confidence to go to the final. I believe it. I believe in Paunovic.
Agreed.
Good question from him too here.
I think I'm gonna reserve my answer to after the League's Cup.
We're gonna contend for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it's a cop out, but I don't see America being as strong as previous seasons. I think Cruz Azul's gonna battle, and I think we're gonna battle, and I think those are your two contenders right there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Cruz Azul and Tigres. Rayados is a mess right now. I think they're gonna end up firing their coach, and word on the street they might bring in Sampaoli or something like that. So
And
that would
Solari,
be an awesome hot mess right there.
yeah, I saw Sampaoli and Solari as their options. I was like, dude, just picking up Americas uh,
Leftovers.
migajas, yeah. Uh, that's all I got, fellas. Thank you, everybody who tuned in tonight. 164 people watching at this moment. We really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. We're looking to, like I said in the previous pods, put out more content. Tomorrow, there's going to be 2 episodes being released. This one, obviously, talking about everything that happened in the Leagues Cup, as well as my interview that I had with Mark. I'll make sure I post his social medias on X, so you guys go follow him. He's a St. Louis supporter and an Everton supporter. Big soccer guy. He knows what he's talking about. I really enjoyed that conversation with him tonight. And he's a fan of Tigres, and you'll get to hear of how he became a fan there. And yeah, loved it. So ultimately, like I said, putting out more content. If you guys have any topics of discussion that you guys would like us to get into, we're trying to figure out, what our audience, likes to, listen to. There's a lot of people that now follow us in English who may be not familiar with the history of our club. So, Lou, that was a great idea to talk about the 10-year anniversary next year for the Copa Libertadores for people that didn't start watching Tigres around that time. So, any topics of discussion or things that you guys would like to know more about the team, we're all open for it. There's 5 of us, and we're always looking to, if people are up for it, to receive more help on the pod, and we can do more, specific content with different people, and that way the scheduling is not so heavy here on my friends. So thank you, everybody, like I said, for tuning in to the Lau Times podcast and our project that we have going on here. We really appreciate it, and we're grateful that you guys have enjoyed everything that we're putting out with our conversations and our takes.
Follow us on X and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok.
Yep, that's for sure. All righty, fellas. You guys take care. And everybody, thank you once again. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.
See y'all at Terry Black's on Thursday. Lose buying.